So let's talk about time division multiplexing in the context of pulse code modulation, PCM. The basic point is that there are many circuits like high bandwidth cable or satellite channels, okay, which give you a lot of bandwidth, right? So even if you are doing pulse code modulation transmission for one voice channel, let's say you are only interested in transmitting voice signals. That is one of the most important kinds of communication traffic. We are only using up to 64 kilobits per second, right? So if you are you know doing PCM transmission for one voice channel, we are only using up to 64 kilobits per second, not beyond that of the bandwidth. Therefore, what is really happening is, even though you have high bandwidth cables, but you are underutilizing that. The bandwidth is not used efficiently, because in high bandwidth cables like coaxial cables or satellite channels, much more bandwidth is available. Then we would like to make use of it by using some kind of multiplexing technique. So I have listed out some kind of multiplexing techniques like frequency division multiplexing, time division multiplexing, then code division multiplexing, space division multiplexing, wavelength division multiplexing. There are many methods one can employ to utilize the resources efficiently. And all this will be multiples of basic pulse code modulation rate, that is 64 kilobits per second. So what you do, you take, instead of sending only one voice channel, you can combine many voice channels. So we use something called a time division multiplexing, which is essentially a form of bit interleaving. We are not going to use the resource continuously. We are going to use for a short period of time, and the rest of the time we can use it for somebody else. Okay, so use bit interleaving of the pulses from a number of voice channels. Let's say voice channel 1, V2, V3, like this. You use this V1 for certain duration, and V2 for some other duration, and V3 for some other duration. This interleaving may be at the bit level or at the byte level. So basically you have 64 kilobits per second for one voice channel. In this we are going to employ interleaving of the pulses. Okay, this interleaving can be done at the bit level or at the byte level or word level. Okay, now let us take a small example, and then we will understand this basic time division multiplexing technique, how it is done. Let us see. Okay, let's say I have three voice circuits. Let me call V1 voice circuit 1, voice circuit 2, and voice circuit 3. And this is a simple scheme, let's say. Okay, and I have considered three voice circuits here, and in each voice, let's say they have identical bandwidth, which is this voice V1 has 3.3 kilohertz, and this guy also 3.3 kilohertz, and voice 3 also 3.3 kilohertz, identical bandwidth. Therefore the sampling is being done at twice of this bandwidth, which is 6.6 samples per second, 6.6 kilo samples, or 6600 samples per second by Nyquist theorem. Here also 6600 samples per second. But generally what people will do is they will increase the sampling rate in order to provide some space for GOT band. So So don't take 3.3 kilohertz abruptly. Instead of taking 3.3, you take up to 4 kilohertz. This 3.3 to 4 kilohertz in between, see this is 0 hertz, then up to 3.3 kilohertz, and in between 4 kilohertz and 3.3 kilohertz, this is my God band, in order to differentiate between the two voice signals. So generally we will consider up to 0 to 4 kilohertz as the bandwidth of a typical voice signal. A typical voice signal has the bandwidth of 4 kilohertz. If you consider 4 kilohertz, then it is going to be 8000 samples per second. So take 8000 samples in a second. Therefore, the sampling is done at twice of not 3.3 kilohertz, but twice of 4 kilohertz. The gap between 3.3 kilohertz and 4 kilohertz is the God band. Therefore, each of these signals V1, V2, V3 has to be sampled not at 6600 samples per second, but at a rate of 8000 samples per second. There are three voice signals coming in, and this is voice 1, voice 2 and voice 3. Okay, as I said, each voice has to be sampled at the Nyquist rate because all of them are voice signals, and we assumed that they will have identical Nyquist rate or identical, and they need identical Nyquist requirement. Okay, therefore each has to be sampled at 8000 samples per second, and immediately after sampling it is encoded, and this is given to encoder, and this guy also given to encoder, and this also given to encoder. So there are three encoders. Okay, so immediately after sampling it is encoded into a digital word. So the output is digital word, and this digital word contains, let's say, 8 bits. So let me represent this digital word by a small rectangle like this, and this is like this. These are digital words, and this digital word contains 8 bits, 1 byte information. Let me call okay, let me say instead of V1, let me call A1, A2 and A3. This is A1. Okay, so it is easy to, one second, let me stick on with my notation. This is A, user A, user B and user C. So from this I got A1, and this one is data word B1. From user C I got data word C1. Right? So this is the first sample. And this also first sample from the user B. First sample from user B, and this guy is first sample from user C. Then again take next sample, then it generates a second sample A2, then third sample A3, like this. And here second sample from user B is B2 and B3 and so on and so forth, C1, C2 and C3. For every sample there is one digital word, and these are this A1, B1, C1 are individual bytes corresponding to the individual samples from the corresponding user. Now the gap between A1 and A2, that is the first and the second byte, form a signal. Okay, the gap between A1 and A2, I mean the first and the second byte from the user A is obviously reciprocal of 8 kilohertz, which will be 125 microsecond. So the time interval between the A1 and A2 is 125 microsecond. So in between the samples of A, that is in between A1 and A2, I could put samples of other signals. So this gap is not utilized, right? See, first you are transmitting A1 and then you wait 125 microsecond and then second sample is you are going to transmit. In between you are not using the time. That time interval you can stuff the digital word from user B and user C. So you first send A1, then in between you have 125 microsecond. In this gap you put the data from the user 2 B1 and send from user 3 C1, and then again come back to user 1 and send A2, then B2 and then C2, like that. Okay, I could take first samples from the user A, next sample from user B, and then next sample from user C, and then I'll come back to sample from user A. So this is repeated. So but I have to come back to A2 within 125 microsecond, otherwise I lose the sample. Okay, and which is the time at which the next sample is required to be taken. And similarly between B1 and B2 I need 125 microseconds. C1 and C2 I need 125 microseconds. Therefore a multiplexer is nothing but a switch or a commutator. It is a commutator, right, which rotates at the sampling rate, that is at the multiple times of sampling rate, depending on how many channels you want to multiplex. Here I am going to multiplex 3 channels, therefore 3 times Fs. This is the rotating speed of my commutator. Okay, so in this case it rotates, or it will rotate at 3 times the sampling rate, where sampling rate is Fs. And therefore the multiplexed byte sequence that you will get is A1, right, followed by B1 followed by C1. What is A1? First sample of user A. What is B1? First sample of user B1. What is C1? First sample of user C. Therefore A1 followed by B1, or first sample of user A followed by first sample of the user B, and followed by the first sample of user C. And then again come back to the second sample of user A, A2, and the second followed by the second sample of user B, and followed by the suffix indicates sample number. Suffix indicates sample number, and so on, it keep on goes. Therefore the individual data rate is 64,000 bits per second, kilobits per second. If you multiplex 3 users, then the bit rate will be 3 times of 64 kilobits per second. So this is 192 kilobits per second. Therefore individual user is producing 64 kilobits per second, but the channel is producing, overall channel is producing 3 times of 64,000 bits. So the overall bit rate will be 3 times 64,000 bits per second, which is 192,000 bits per second. And this 192,000 bits per second can be put on a single circuit which can accommodate such a bit rate, for example a coaxial cable, right? So what you do is you take A1, B1 and C1. So here there is a multiplexer. You put like this, you put a commutator. The commutator first connects to A1 and then it is rotating, and it comes to, this is for 1, 2, 3, and this point is coming to 2, 3, and again comes back to 1, 2, 3, and again comes back to 1. This is the first sample of user A, first sample of user B, first sample of user C. A1 followed by second sample A2. So it is continuously coming from the user A. Similarly from user B you are getting samples B1, then B2, then B3, and from user C you are getting C2, then C3, and so on and so forth. and this is the output. Okay, and you transmit through the coaxial cable or something else like that. And this is single circuit. And here I have 3 circuits. Okay, so this is my coaxial cable. So on the cable, as the propagation is taking place, you place repeaters on the way. Typically the gap is around 600 feet or so between the repeaters. So here you put repeaters to remove the noise. So this is the basic time division multiplexing technique. So essentially what we are doing is, in between successive bytes we put other bytes. Okay, so first A1 is going, then followed by B1 is going, followed by C1, then followed by A2, followed by B2, followed by C2. So it is a very simple kind of thing to do. I mean, in principle there is not much to explain about it. It is a very simple concept. Since this is one of the most important feature, it is very important feature of communication system when you are doing pulse code modulation, because we don't deal with in practice 1 or 2 or 3 voice circuits, right? In practice generally we don't take only 3 circuits. For example, if you take the traffic between Delhi and Mumbai, there will not be like 1 or 2 or 3 voice calls. There will be hundreds of thousands of voice calls between Delhi and Mumbai, or between Delhi and Kolkata, or Delhi and Bangalore, right? There are hundreds of voice calls. So when you are carrying out traffic from one city to another city, the number of voice signals that you are handling, that you may have to carry out, can be very large, and therefore the equipment that you use for this purpose must be designed to handle a large number of voice circuits. Therefore the channel or cable has to be designed in such a way that it has to carry a large number of voice circuits. Okay, the cable that you use therefore should be of sufficiently large bandwidth to be able to handle that kind of bandwidth. Similarly, the equipment that you use should be standardized so that you can handle a different number of circuits. Like sometimes you may require small number of circuits, for example Trichy and Tanjore. Then you may not have large number of traffic or large number of voice calls. In such a case you put a small exchange, and here also you put a small exchange. But if you look at metropolitan cities like Delhi and Bangalore or Delhi and Mumbai, then you should employ a large switching circuit. Okay, large number of circuits if you are servicing through a large exchange. And this has to be more or less standardized across a country. Sometimes India and USA, country to country, so there will be again huge number of voice traffic. So in such a case we need to standardize this. Okay, you cannot simply say multiplex the data and transmit it. So there are certain standards which are already defined and one has to follow when you are designing and implementing this time division multiple access technique. Okay, so it is obvious that you will not typically do PCM transmission of a voice signal within the city. Okay, within Trichurapalli or within Bangalore or within small cities, let's say Tanjavur or like that, you will not do the pulse code modulation within the city. Okay, within small distances where you don't really require the advantage of complex digital systems. So whenever you are going to do for long distance communication, then your PCM will become your savior. Okay, suppose if I want to talk to somebody else in the same city over telephone, the distance involved is not so much, and analog communication with a simple 2-wire line is sufficient for carrying out the communication. Okay, let's say person A is sitting here and person B is somewhere else. In between the distance is, let's say, 2 kilometers. For 2 kilometers you generally don't put a PCM model, no, not needed. Okay, you simply put a pair of cable, okay, pair of wires, and you can give the connection. Okay, simple two-wire line is sufficient between this short distance communications to carry out the traffic. So usually we need to take advantages of such pulse code modulation kind of techniques only when you are doing a long distance communication. PCM is only for long distance communication, not for short distance communication. And that is typically the case, let's say, in between the, as I said, cities, between the cities or between countries or between continent. So in that case, the PCM is very good. Okay, so between countries, when you are doing through satellite, between the countries you may employ satellite, or between the continent you may do satellite links. So it is a trunk route. So these are called the trunk route. Trunk route that we are talking about, and a trunk route means we are handling a large number of circuits, and it must be handled with the standard equipment. So trunk route means two things. One is long distance, and then also large number of voice calls, or large number of voice calls or circuits, whatever it is. So in order to make sure the things are done in a standardized manner, because you are handling for long distance and a large number of calls, then we need to standardize this. So we need to standardize this both at the national level as well as international level. I cannot go and develop one standard and use it in India, and somebody else comes and prepare one standard and uses in Europe or in the United States of America. Then there will be some misalignment between the formats and the rate at which we are sampling and the way we are multiplexing. There are many issues. So in order to make sure a smooth operation between the countries or between the continent or between the two techniques, then we need to make everything as a standard. So to make sure that the equipment manufacturers manufacture that equipment according to that standard. So you cannot go and make the equipment as you like. So you need to follow certain guidelines which are given by the standardizing body. So we look at the multiplexing standards that exist now. See, there are actually two kinds of standards that you will find in multiplexing, just like anything else, right? So we use 50 Hertz, but Americans use 60 Hertz. And we drive on the left hand side of the road, but they drive on the right hand side of the road. So like that, there are two standards: European standard and American standard. So we follow European standards, right? Driving on the left hand side. So let us compare, these two standards, or let us discuss any one and see how the standard was developed, right? Like Americans have their own standards for everything, and so do they for multiplexing as compared to the rest of the world. So you will have one set of standards which is applicable in North America, including Canada, and countries like Japan in the Far East. So the next topic is multiplexing standards. So there is a body that is called the International Telegraph and Telephone Consultative Committee. International Telegraph and Telephone Consultative Committee. So in short, this is called a CCITT. It is I think French word, okay. So this was created in 1956 and was renamed in 1993 as ITUT. ITUT, International Telecommunication Union. T. Okay, and similarly, European countries which have close technological relations with Northern America. And Europe and much of the rest of the world uses another standard. Let's call it this European standard. Okay, actually there are two standard making bodies that are very important. One is the CCIT and the other one is from the American. Okay, this is the European body. Actually it is an internationally recognized body, and this is the federal, okay, and other is the Federal Standards of America. So one is the CCITT and another one is Federal Standards of America. Something. So there is a lot of interaction between these two, at least these days, so that many standards that are coming up now are common. But many other standards that have evolved in the past are not so common. So we will look at here only European standards in the multiplexing context. There are quite a few differences between the European and the American standard, but we have to basically learn how the standards are done. It is not really important, okay, what the specific about the specific details of various different standards, okay, how the standards might be. Now the basic multiplexing equipment in these standards is what is called a primary multiplexer. Okay, so primary mux. Okay, so and it can handle 32 circuits. Let's say the circuits are numbered from 0, 1, 2 up to 16. This is 1, maybe 15, and then 16, 17 up to 31. So there are 32 circuits, Y circuits. So it has the potential of handling 32 circuits. So you find 32 A to D converters or pulse code modulation circuit. So here A to D, here A to D, A to D like this, right? 32 A to D converters. Actually, out of this 32, only 30 are used. Okay, we will not use 32, we use only 32. And remaining 2 is reserved for some other purpose. I will tell you what the purpose is. Other purpose. Like circuit 0 is reserved for synchronization purpose. I will tell you what we mean by synchronization. And circuit or slot 16 is used for what is called signaling information, to carry the signaling information. So 2 circuit or 2 slot is not used, and 30 slots are used. Okay, so only 30 are used for Y circuits. The circuits are numbered like 1 to 15 is used for in one group, and 17 to 31 is another group. 1 to 15 and 17 to 31. So totally 30 channels. So multiplexing these 30 voice channels into a single circuit. So you put a TDM equipment here, time division multiplexing equipment. So followed by each of these A to D converter, we have this TDM equipment. It connects round robin fashion. First it connects to 0 circuit, then first, second, third up to 31st. This multiplexing equipment, which is essentially a high speed switch actually. This is nothing but high speed switch. So finally you get a data rate at the output. This is my output, which is 32 times 64 kilobits per second. which is equal to 2.048 Mbps, megabits per second. And this 2.048 megabits per second, which could be transmitted over a 4-wire line, okay, which could be a cable system, or it could be transmitted even over a satellite link. A 4-wire lane, or a coaxial cable, or a satellite link, right? This A to D converters, as this A to D converters is designed to fulfill the European standard, and this A to D converters uses mu law. There are two laws in pulse code modulation, right, for compression and decompression. So mu law and A law. American standards use A law, and European standards use mu law. I'm sorry, I don't know. So I think the European standard uses A law, and the American standard uses mu law, I guess. So this is the basic multiplexing equipment. Now I wrote here 4-wire line. What do you mean by 4-wire line? A 4-wire system is essentially a one in which you transmit on one pair of lines and receive on another pair of lines, which is unlike the 2-wire system that you normally familiar with in the telephone system. See, within the city, if you have landline connection, you use 2-wire line, but in the long distance communication we use 4-wire line, okay, because we are sure that about the telephones. In a telephone receiver handset that you have has internally, if you use the handset, landline handset, if you look at it internally, it has microphone and earphone, right? The handset has mic and earphone. So ideally, to listen and to speak, you require separate wires. 2 wires for mic and 2 wires for earphone, but they are combined together into 2 wires. These 2 wires are combined to make the 2 wires outside, but within the handset, if you look at, there are 4 wires. So here we use 2-wire lines to propagate onto the telephone line, which is okay, and this is essentially a 2-wire line. We both transmit and receive on these two lines, but within the handset, that is within the instrument, we do something so that your local transmitted signal does not bother you at the ear, as well as it does not bother the other person which he is receiving your signal. Because in the same handset, if you start to speak, the same voice will come and come to your earphone, and you can start to hear your own voice. So that should not happen. So therefore, within the handset we use 4 lines, 4 wires, 2 wires for mic and 2 wires for earphones. So there has to be a 2-wire to 4-wire conversion in such devices. In the instrument, you have a converter, 2 wires to 4 wires. Okay, and this is done some kind of a device called a hybrid transformer. So there is something called a hybrid transformer. Through that, you can convert these 2 wires to 4 wires, so that your own voice will not be heard in your ear, in your earphone. But in trunk lines, it is a bit dangerous to use hybrid transformers and all. Okay, good quality trunk lines would prefer not to use such a hybrid transformers. Okay, so for long distance communication and all, it is not advisable to use hybrid transformers. They would rather do transmission in a separate pair of lines, and for transmission and reception. Transmission in a separate pair of lines and reception over a separate pair of lines. So when you transmit, it is done on a separate pair of lines, and when the other guy is transmitting, it is coming on a separate pair of lines, not in the same pair of lines, so that we don't interfere with each other. My voice will not be interfered with the other side person's voice. So on trunk line, it is important to do so if feasible. Like many trunk lines also could be of the 2-wire kind, but it is preferred to have 4-wire trunk lines. So the multiplexing equipment I have shown in this figure, okay, can take 32 channels. Okay, it multiplexes 32 channels, and actually only 30 of these are used, not 32, and remaining 2 are reserved. Channel 0 is reserved for synchronization, and channel 16 is reserved for where is it? Signaling information. Okay, now we will go to the next level now. Many times you may have situations where you may like to put more number of channels. Okay, 32 may not be sufficient. One may feel that 32 may not be sufficient. Okay, you can't expect only 32 persons are talking from Delhi to Mumbai, right? There may be like hundreds of thousands of people are making a call. So in that case, we need to consolidate more number of channels. So there will be some hierarchy. Okay. So many times you would like to put more number of channels. For example, if you are using a satellite link, you may not do it only for a city or just one major center from a city. You may like to combine information coming from a number of nodes in the city or one country to another country. In that case, we need to combine many things. So the output of this is 2.048 Mbps. So let me say 2 Mbps. Okay, so you may like to have hierarchy of multiplexing to go from multiplexing of 32 voice channels to much higher number of voice channels. Suppose I want to send 64 voice channels. How can I do that? Take one set like this primary mux. You put primary mux 1, and here you put primary mux 2. In this you put 1 to 32, and from here 33 to 64, and these two guys you give to another mux and combine, so that essentially you can send 64 voice channels. So this is hierarchy level 1 and this is hierarchy level 2. Okay, therefore there has to be flexibility in terms of number of channels that I can put in this node. Okay, if you design a circuit, it has to be have certain amount of flexibility, so that if additional voice call comes, then I should be in a position to accommodate those voice calls also. So the standard also specifies the hierarchy of multiplexing, which can allow you bit rates which are multiples of 64 times n, right? But 64 times n is much higher than 2 Mbps, and the hierarchy is something like this. So we have the basic multiplexer, primary multiplexer. So primary multiplexer 1, primary multiplexer 2, primary multiplex 3, and primary multiplexer 4. So here 2 Mbps, 2 Mbps, 2 Mbps, 2 Mbps, and this you give it to another multiplexer. Okay, another multiplexer equipment. So 2, 2, 2, so there are 4 2s, so it is 8. So it is 1:8, single line with 8 Mbps. Okay, so you can put 4 of this primary multiplexer, and each of this primary multiplexer is the output of 2 Mbps speed. Okay, so this is the output of one primary multiplexer. So I can put 4 of this into the next hierarchy. So this is hierarchy 1 and this is hierarchy 2. Next level of hierarchy of multiplexing to produce a single line of how much? 1 times 8 megabits per second. Okay, and here this is 1, 2, 3 up to 32, and here 33 to 64, and here 65 to, you keep on add it. So how many channels? 4 times 32, 128 channels you are multiplexing now. Okay, so data rate corresponding to 128 channels, 120 channels would be roughly 8, will be 8 Mbps. And out of this 128, how many will be utilized for voice? Only 120 will be utilized. Remaining 8 is reserved for, as I said, voice, for signaling information and for synchronization. Okay, now what you do, here I got 8 Mbps in this hierarchy level 2. Let me take another mux equipment, and this guy also giving 8 Mbps. Another mux equipment is giving 8 Mbps. One more 8 Mbps. So this is my hierarchy level 3. Now combine these guys together. So here also I put another mux equipment. Now here 8 Mbps, how many voice circuits? 128, and here 128, and here 128, and here 128. Okay, totally 512 channels, and 4 times 8, 32 Mbps. So it is a single channel, 1 times 32 multiplexer, megabits per second. Okay, similarly at the next hierarchy I have 4 of this. So this is 32 Mbps, H3. You put one more device like this, one more device like this, one more device like this. This is 32 Mbps, 32 Mbps, 32 Mbps. You put next multiplexer. This is hierarchy level 4 and this is hierarchy level 5. You combine this. Okay, so 32 plus 32, 64, 64 plus another 64, 128. 128 Mbps. Right, 128, 128, 128, 128, 512 voice circuits, and here also 512, 512, 512. So totally 2048 voice circuits. Okay, so generally instead of 32 Mbps we have 34 Mbps. I will tell you why this is Mbps 34. So 34 times 4, this is going to be 136, right? But instead of 136 it is going to be 140 Mbps. Sorry, am I correct? Yeah, 8 Mbps, 8 Mbps, 8 Mbps. 4 times 32, instead of 32 you will get 34. And here also 34, and here also 34, here also 34. Why the difference between this 32 and 34? Because of the additional information you are transmitting. So 4 times 34 at this point supposed to be 136, but actually it is not 136, it is 140 Mbps. What is the reason for this? We will discuss that in a few minutes. So like this the hierarchy goes. So I have primary multiplexer, and in this primary multiplexer the input is 32 lines, and again another 32 lines, another 32 lines. So like this you form here, you will get 8 Mbps. Each primary multiplexer gives 2.048 Mbps, and the next level it is going to be 8 Mbps, then it is going to be 32 Mbps, but in real it is not 32, it is 34, and then next level it is going to be 140 Mbps. So this is the hierarchy that we use in the CCITT standard. Okay, but again the American standards are different at this level. Okay, just to mention the American standards to you, the basic primary multiplexing equipment of the American standard multiplexes not 32 but 24 voice circuits. Okay, 24 voice channels instead of 32, American standard. American uses 24 and European uses 32. Similarly, at each hierarchy level, the American standard is different from the corresponding European standard. Now, one can naturally ask a question like, how about intercontinental communication happens, right? Because Europeans will talk to Americans and Americans talk to Europeans, right? So in that case, how do they communicate? Again, no, they have a lot of problem, okay, and they have to have what is called inter-networking equipment, which can convert signals from one format to another format or one standard to another standard. So they require all that between European standard and American standard. Now let us look at this multiplexing at the primary level, in more detail. So this is the primary level. Now, why this output is not exactly multiples of 30, 32 or something else. Okay, so now what you do is you take a frame like this, you first send a 0, then 1, and then user from data from 2, then bits from user 3, and so on like this, and then finally you come to 31. Okay, and this is the basis of time division multiplexing, and this whole thing is going to be 2048 Mbps digital data stream. As I said, we have 32 time slots, right? This is first time slot, second time slot. In the first time slot, user 1 data is transmitted. In the second time slot, user 2 data is transmitted, and so on and so forth. So I have 32 time slots, and each slot is allocated for each user. One user only, not the other user. And each of the small little, this slot indicates one such a time slots numbered from 0 to 31. And out of which slot numbers 1 to 15 and 17 to 31 are used for voice circuits. As I said, 0 is reserved for synchronization purpose, and slot number 16, right? 16 is reserved for signaling information, right? 0 for synchronization and 16 for signaling information for voice circuits. Okay, so therefore slot numbers 0 and 16 are used for other purposes. But the total duration of these slots has to be 125 microseconds, because after you have sampled the first sample of the first channel, you have to get to the next sample with the 125 microseconds. So this total duration is 125 microseconds. That is 256 bits per frame. So the total duration of the slot has to be 125 microseconds, and within that you have 256 bits coming in corresponding to 32 slots. Because 32 slots and each slot contains 8 bits, so totally 256 bits. So this unit of 32 time slots constitute a frame, and this whole thing is called frame, one frame. Okay, we call this a frame, and this is one frame of information, right? This is actually a snapshot of one frame, and each slot consists of how many bits? 8 bits. Each slot contains the information from a particular sample, right? Each slot has one sample of voice circuit contained in it. Okay, so this information is represented in the form of 8-bit word. 8-bit word. So each slot contains an 8-bit word like this. Okay, now let us talk about the slot number 0. As I said, slot number 0 is reserved for synchronization purposes. So there is a special bit sequence which is used for synchronization purpose that use here. Okay, and this special bit sequence will vary from one frame to another frame. Okay, the synchronization sequences are not constant across the frames. Okay, so it repeats itself after several frames, which we will help you to know the frame boundaries, and that's very important for you to know. We must know where one frame ends and another frame begins. So we need to know the starting point and we need to know the ending point. And this is done by transmitting specific fixed sequences in the 0th time slots. Okay, so see for a frame, the beginning is 0th time slot. So in the 0th time slot, you inform the receiver that this is the starting of the frame. And again, once the frame is end, again the next frame comes. In the first slot is reserved for signaling information. Synchronization purpose. Similarly, slot number 16 contains what is called signaling information. Typically, the signaling information will enable, let's say, a particular bit stream which is coming along to reach its proper destination. So you transmit the information, and that information has to go to the destined user. Okay, it should not go to somewhere else. So it contains information regarding the destination address or the location where the data has to go. So the destination address is taken care of in a quite different way in analog communication, but here this destination address is taken care of in the 16th slot, right? In analog communication, the destination is taken care on an additional wires or additional circuits. So in analog communication, the destination is done with the help of additional wires or additional circuits. But in digital communication, this is done by putting the destination information as a bit of information along with the rest of information. So it will tell you, the 16th slot will tell you as to which exchange it has to be. Okay, suppose the traffic is originating at Tiruchirappalli, and whether the data has to go to Tanjavur or Chennai or Bangalore. So those information is kept in the 16th slot. Okay, particularly when you are talking about a hierarchy of equipment, like this, hierarchy of equipment like this, maybe I'll compress, like this. Different bit streams at 2 megabits level may be all destined to different places. Okay, and this 2 Mbps may be destined to Tanjore, and this 2 Mbps may be destined to Dindigul, and this 2 Mbps may be destined to Bangalore, and this 2 Mbps may be destined to Salem, and so on and so forth. So each of them contain its own destination. This 2 Mbps line contains its own destination address, and this guy contains its own destination, this guy contains its own destination, this guy contains its own destination. And obviously this destination information will exchange from time to time. Sometime it goes to Tanjore, and next time it may go to some other place, right? From the primary multiplexer, it doesn't mean that the data is going to only in one location or one destination. It can keep change from time to time. For a certain time, the data may go to Tanjore, and some other time it go to Chennai, it goes to Bangalore, it goes to Mumbai, and so on and so forth. Therefore, the 16th bit, the 16th slot bits are not same. It varies from time to time. Okay, it will change from time to time. So that the 16th slot has the destination information, and the whole frame is destined to that particular location. Okay, so therefore it is, the destination address is not for individual slot, it is for the whole frame. The whole frame is destined to the particular location. Because we are not doing it on the individual level, we are doing this typically at the trunk level, like how the post office works. Okay, so obviously the grouping has to be done properly when you do a courier service or a postal service. You do not put information arbitrary, right? So you put the letters and the couriers, everything in one big bag which is destined to a particular location. Okay, so that's how the time division multiplexing equipment works. Okay, so that's it. That's all about the time division multiplexing and its standard. So the PCM is employed whenever you need time division multiplexing and to save the resources and use the resources efficiently. And also we discussed the standard for time division multiplexing. So let me stop at this point. Thank you very much.